Welcome back to Paper Things. Today we'll read chapters 16 through 19. Chapter 16, Confetti. One hot shower later, I'm sitting at the bar in Chloe's kitchen with her and Nate. The song, All You Need Is Love, is blasting from Nate's iPad, and a bouquet of sunshiny yellow daffodils is sipping water from a clean spaghetti sauce jar in front of us. Gage brought them for Chloe. Tonight, we're celebrating. Gage is frying up pork chops and applesauce, which I haven't had since we left Jana's. He bought the pork chops and all the fixings to go with them, too. Baby potatoes, broccoli with cheddar cheese sauce, and sparkling cider. When the chorus of the song comes around, we all sing loudly. It might be true that the only thing we need is love, but a pork chop dinner and a job at Jiffy Lube sure don't hurt. To Gage's new job, Chloe says as we clink mismatched glasses. My glass has a picture of Charlie Brown and a kite. Gage's has a picture of a sailing ship. But my eyes rest on Nate's glass, which has a picture of an airplane. It was the plane, I say suddenly, remembering the wish I made on Reggie's paper airplane with its jiffy wing. What plane? Chloe asks, and I explain about the airplane that Reggie made for me and how one of its wings hid an advertisement for Jiffy Lube. I made a wish and sailed the plane out the window at Perry and Kristen's, I tell Gage, and what I wished for was that you would get a job at Jiffy Lube, and you did! And I didn't even know that you had an interview. That sounds like one lucky plane, Chloe says, her voice very impressed. What are you talking about? It was my mechanical knowledge that got me the job, Gage shouts from the stove. Nate turns down the music and props his iPad up on the bar so that we can look at ads for apartments. Look for places in the East End, Gage says. It's a lot closer to Carter. I force myself to smile. I love that Gage is so confident that I'll get into Carter, but he doesn't know about all the late homework assignments or the disappointed looks from the teachers. I'm not even sure he remembers that I haven't been given a leadership role yet, and time is running out. To Carter, Nate says, and raises his glass. I raise my Charlie Brown glass along with everyone else, and we clink glasses again. I stuff my concerns deep down. I don't want to ruin the celebration. How much rent can you afford? Asks Nate. Gage tells him, and Chloe says that it will be hard to find a 2-bedroom for that price. It'd be a lot easier to swing if there were 2 of us pitching in for rent, Gage says. At first I think he's talking about me, and I cringe. How the heck am I supposed to find enough discarded change to pay half the rent? But then I notice that he's looking at Chloe, and he's got a big teasing grin on his face. Chloe's face turns the color of her red hair. Not until we make the 1-year mark, she says, but she's smiling too, and I can tell she's glad that he asked, even if it was mostly a joke. I look down at the iPad, feeling relieved. As much as I love Chloe, lately I've been looking forward to me and Gage having a place all our own, at least for a little while. We can get a 1-bedroom and I'll sleep on the couch, I say, glancing up again. But then it occurs to me that we don't have a couch. We don't have any furniture. I wonder if Gage's job will pay him enough for us to get some. Chloe takes over the iPad and finds a listing for a 1-bedroom in the East End that's only a little more than we can afford. She reads, "A charming place with lots of potential." Boy, there are some red flags, says Nate. Charming means small, and potential means it's probably gnarly. I don't mind cleaning, I say, and lean over to get a better look. Gage comes over to see too. It's tiny, he says. Hardly bigger than Briggs's studio. It is a little small looking, and it could do with a good hard scrubbing, but still, our own place in the East End. We can do tiny. Nate scoffs. You couldn't even spread out your paper dolls in an apartment that small. We'd have to be the size of Miles, says Gage, to fit in that apartment. Chloe looks confused, so I tell her that Miles is my oldest cutout, and Gage tells her that Briggs accidentally ripped him and now he has tape across his chest. Nate finds a listing for an apartment in the West End that has only one bedroom, but it has a little office that could be my bedroom. Applicants must have 2 years of good recent landlord references, he reads. I frown at the screen. You mean you already have to have had an apartment for 2 years? Gage nods. I would like to rent this apartment, he says in a deep, fake voice. It's the game. Do you have references? I ask in my fake lady voice. How do you get references? He says. By renting an apartment, I say. I would like to rent this apartment. Do you have any references? Well, how do you get references? By renting it. All right, says Nate. Anyway, it says here that you can have a cosigner if you don't have references. What's that? I ask, wobbling back onto my stool. Someone who has a record of being financially responsible, Gage says. Maybe Jana would co-sign for the apartment, Chloe says before taking another sip of cider. I raise my eyes at Gage. Would we really visit Jana? Ask her to help us? My heart stumbles, gives an extra beat. I wonder what she's doing right now. For some reason, I picture her slicing onions, chopping them into little tiny chunks. But Gage is shaking his head. It's not an option, is all he says. Besides, it's in the West End and Carter is in the East. He turns off the fire under the pots and pans. Someone's at the table, he says, by which he means the bar. Nate turns to grab some plates while Chloe shrugs and goes back to looking. Here's one in the East End, Chloe says. It's a 2-bedroom and it has laundry in the building. What's it look like? Gage asks. It looks okay, Chloe says. It says prospective tenant must income qualify. What does that mean? I ask, getting as close to the pictures on the screen as I can. The kitchen has wooden cabinets and an orange countertop. There's gray carpeting on the floor. The bathroom has a shower stall. It looks a little dated, but much cleaner than the other place. And it has 2 bedrooms. I wonder if I could paint the walls of my bedroom turquoise. In the latest Pottery Barn catalog, a lot of the rooms were turquoise. It probably means that you can't make over a certain income. You should call, Chloe says, grabbing his phone from the coffee table. Gage places 2 platters on the bar. The pork chops with brown bits mixed into the applesauce looks amazing. So does the broccoli with cheese. He brings over a large bowl full of steaming baby potatoes and takes his place on a stool. Call about the apartment, says Chloe, holding out the phone. I'll call, says Gage, scooping up pork chops and sliding them onto our plates. Chloe sings, It's in the East End. It could be gone tomorrow. She's still holding his phone. I've cut my first piece and my mouth is watering. I can already taste the juiciness of the pork chop. As much as I want Gage to call about the apartment, I want Chloe to put the phone down and pick up her fork even more. The Beatles sing Let It Be. I wonder if Nate chose the song or if it's a coincidence. Gage stares at Chloe. She stares back. Nate gives me a grimace that says, awkward. Gage rests his forearms on the table and sighs. I can't call, Chloe, he says. Jana cut my phone service today. She throws the phone down on the counter. You've got to be kidding. Gage interrupts. Please don't, Chloe, he says. Tonight, please. Let's not let Jana ruin this celebration. Chloe pauses. You can tell that she doesn't want to change the subject. Maybe she wants to rail about Jana. Maybe she wants to offer him her phone. But she stops herself, picks up her fork, and shrugs. Ever notice that a shrug hardly ever means what it's meant to? Chapter 17. Reports. I wait by my locker for Sasha to finish her duties as patrol leader. Every morning since 5th grade started, we've met here. I've decided that today will be the day I tell her everything. I'll tell her about leaving Jana's, Gage's new job, and the Jiffy Lube airplane. I'm looking forward to having things back to normal between us. But she doesn't come. It isn't until Mr. O pops his head outside his door and tells anyone who is still standing in the hall to come on in that I go to get my social studies book and find the note from her inside my locker. It reads, "Thanks for calling me back last night. Again." Then there is someone else's handwriting. Lenny's, I'm pretty sure, right below Sasha's. "Do you know you're the only 5th grader who still doesn't own a cell phone?" I grab my book and slam my locker closed. So Sasha has called Janice after all, and more than once. But obviously Jana hasn't told her that I don't live there. What does Jana say instead? That I'm eating dinner, busy, gone somewhere? Whatever the excuse, Sasha clearly thinks I'm ignoring her. As for Lenny's remark, that isn't even close to being true. Loads of kids at our school don't have cell phones. Last I knew, Sasha didn't have one either. Though, I wonder if she just got one and that's why she was calling. That, or she still wants to talk about my appearance. I can't find out which because she and Lenny, who are already in their seats in homeroom, pretend they don't see me when I walk in. I'm about to say something to tell Sasha that I have something very important to tell her, something that will explain everything, when Daniel grabs my backpack and yanks. "Cut it!" "I'll do it," he says. "You'll do what?" "I'll help you get a leadership role and apply to Carter." I had forgotten all about my note to Daniel. I want to ask Daniel how he plans to help, but just then the morning announcements begin. While we stand for the national anthem, I look over at Sasha. We always exchange a glance during the anthem, our "here we go again" look. But today, she doesn't turn back, doesn't catch my eye. She looks at Lenny instead. "It's okay, Ariana Hazard," I tell myself. "You like being invisible. You're good at it." I decide not to tell Sasha about my situation after all, not until she acknowledges that I exist. All morning long I glide in and out of classes pretending I'm a ghost. I'm actually amazed at how easy this is. Most of my teachers have long given up calling on me, which normally would upset me, but I don't mind today. It just makes being invisible all the easier. At lunchtime, I ask Mr. O if I can do work in his room again. He asks to see the work I did yesterday during lunch. Fortunately, I've completed the introduction and 3 new pages. I've written about Louisa May's childhood, how she'd had to move frequently, and how she'd written in her journal, "I wish I was rich. I was good, and we were all a happy family this day." "Very good, Ariana," Mr. O says, handing my pages back to me. "Let's see if you can't match yesterday's productivity. I'll be in the teacher's lounge if you need me." Inside my backpack, I have a salami and cheese sandwich that Nate made for me. Now that Gage has a job, I told him after breakfast that Jana had not only stopped paying for his phone, but also my hot lunch. Although I wish I hadn't, since Gage's whole body tensed as he sprayed angry words. "Why didn't you tell me, Ari? I can't believe she just cut you off. I just assumed that you were set for the rest of the year." Chloe went over and put her arm around him, but he was too mad to be comforted by her touch. "She just wants to put the screws to us," he continued. "Like always, Jana has to prove that she's the one who knows everything. I can't believe she would do that to you, Ari." "Ari probably qualifies for free lunch," Nate said. "Not until we can put an address on the form," Gage replied. I probably could have started the circle game with that line, but I knew Gage wasn't in the mood to play. He sat down on the couch beside me and held open my backpack while I tried to fit in some clean clothes and my schoolwork too. "I promise I'm going to fix this," he said. I struggled to slip my paper things folder into my backpack. "Do you believe me, Ari?" I looked at Gage and nodded. "We can do this. I know we can. We're a team, right?" "A team," I said. I'm writing the next section of my report when Daniel walks into the room. "Did you get permission to be here?" I ask. I'm afraid that he's going to get us both in trouble. "Which items on my list do you want to do?" he says, ignoring me and flipping a chair around so he's straddling it backward. "There's one more round of leadership announcements before the end of the year," I say. "Can you guarantee that one of those jobs will be mine?" He shakes his head. "Face it, Ari, the odds of getting one of those final positions are slim." I look away for a moment, wondering if everyone in the school has noticed how badly I'm doing. But he continues, "I can give you a suggestion." I raise my eyebrows. "Invent your own leadership role," Daniel says. I frown. "What do you mean?" "Come up with something helpful to do and then ask a teacher if you can do it. I bet you'd even get extra credit for having come up with the role yourself." Extra credit sounds good. I can use all the credit I can get. "I volunteer at Head Start," I say. "Do you think that would count?" Daniel makes a face to show that he's thinking, but I can tell he's not especially impressed. "Lots of kids volunteer," he says. "I think you need something else, something that really sets you apart. Though having volunteer work on your application can't hurt," he adds, likely noticing my sadness. "Okay," I say slowly. "So, what sorts of helpful tasks could I volunteer to do?" "I don't know," Daniel admits, "but there must be something that needs doing here at Eastland, something besides safety patrol and tutoring math." I shrug. "Yeah, maybe," I say, when what I really want to say is thanks for nothing. "So, which of the items on my list do you want to do?" he asks again, opening his little book. "None," I say. "You didn't get me a leadership role." "True," he says. "But all you've got to do now is come up with an idea, and we'll have a leadership role to put on your application. So, which one should I put off till you're ready?" I can't help myself. I look at his list. I'm definitely not going to sneak into Miss Finch's room again, no matter what I think of poor Gerald. And I'm not sliding down the math hallway either. I consider making snowflakes. I'd missed making them back in November when we had the first snowfall, even more than I expected. I'd been in Mr. O's room studying the American Revolution when Lenny announced that the first flakes were falling. We'd all cheered and started putting our textbooks away in anticipation of paper and scissors. But Mr. O had sighed and said, "Not this year." We just kept on reading about Paul Revere as if nothing exciting were happening right outside our very own window, as if the traditions of the Eastland Tigers, traditions that my mom and dad and Jana and Gage had all participated in, had never even existed. That's when a tiny little idea rests on me, like a fluffy, six-pointed snowflake that has to be examined quickly before it melts away. "A traditions club," I whisper. Daniel leans in. "What?" "I could start a club for the kids who still want to do the Eastland traditions." "Like snowflakes and crazy hats?" I nod. "And maybe even the 5th grade campout." Daniel looks unconvinced. "That would be cool, but you'd have to follow the procedures for establishing a club. Presenting the administration with the club's mission statement, conducting a student survey to see how many kids want to join, finding a chaperone, requesting a room, sending home parent permission slips. It's a lot of work," he cautions. I'd forgotten that Daniel had tried to establish a robotics club last year, and if Daniel couldn't get kids to stay after school for robots, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get them to give up their free time for snowflakes. Besides, half the fun of the Eastland traditions was breaking up the boring school day routine. "This is useless," I say, dropping my head to my desk. "It's too late to get a leadership role. There's not enough interest in starting a club. Let's face it, I'm not going to have anything impressive to put on my application to Carter. I don't know why I'm even bothering to apply." Daniel is quiet for a minute. "Maybe you could start a campaign to get the Eastland traditions back. Get them back for everyone, he says. I look up. A campaign? Yeah, like those kids who campaigned to get the street out front renamed in honor of Ms. Tabor. Ms. Tabor used to be our school librarian. You could put up posters, get kids to sign a petition. I'll help. Give me your number. I don't know. A club suggests that you're adding something to a school. A campaign sounds like you're challenging the rules. I don't want Carter to think I'm a troublemaker. Better than Carter not thinking of you at all, Daniel says. He has a point. I scribble Gage's cell phone number on a slip of paper and pass it to Daniel. It's not till after the bell rings that I remember that Gage's phone number no longer works. Chapter 18. Bus Passes. Since I spent most of my lunch period talking with Daniel, I didn't get much further on my biography. What will my final term progress report, the one I have to attach to the application to Carter, what will it look like? I'm going to have to work hard to bring my grades up, which hopefully will be easier once Gage and I move into our new apartment. But Daniel's suggestion has been spinning around in my head since lunch, and I'm more determined than ever to do what I need to do to get into Carter. Maybe it won't be enough, but at least I won't have gone down without a fight. So as soon as the last bell rings, I head to the office and request an application. I expect Mrs. Benoit, the secretary, to ask me why Jana isn't the one picking up the application, and I've got a lie all ready to go, but she just smiles and hands over the form as though kids ask for applications to Carter all the time. As I walk out of the office, I hear a voice calling my name. It's Ms. Finch, standing by the bench in the front hall. "Ari," she says. "Everything okay?" I pause, wondering what she means, and then I realize she thinks I've just come from the principal's office, because in her eyes, I am no longer Ariana Hazard, star pupil. Instead, I'm Ariana Hazard, the girl who did Mr. O's assignment during computer lab, who is often late and disorganized, and whose hair looks like it hasn't seen a brush in a month. I feel pressure behind my eyeballs and blink furiously. I will not cry in front of Miss Finch. "Everything's good," I say as brightly as I can manage. I want to tell her that things will be better from now on, that Gage and I are on our own now, and that we've been struggling, but Gage has a full-time job and soon we'll be getting an apartment, which means no more tardies and no more doing my homework during computer lab. But I don't dare. Not just because Gage told me not to, but because I'm not going to do one more thing to jeopardize my application to Carter. I'm pretty sure they're not looking for a kid who's homeless, which I'm not, of course. It's just a temporary, what does Briggs call me? Floor surfer? I'm on my way to Head Start, I offer instead. I volunteer there in the afternoons. Miss Finch raises her eyebrows like she's surprised. Another reminder of just how far I've fallen in her estimation. Like Daniel said, lots of kids in 5th grade volunteer. It's so they can say on their middle school applications that they've done service learning. "Maybe one day you can come by my room and tell me more about it," she says. "I'd like to hear." I nod, not sure what to make of that. Is it possible that she doesn't believe me? That she thinks I'm making up an after-school activity just to look good? Has it really come to that? I'm sitting at the cutting table at Head Start. Juju is next to me cutting a shiny stove from a Home Depot flyer. Omar is tearing paper in his usual way. A couple of other kids have gravitated to us today as well. There's a page in the catalog I'm flipping through that said, "May Day's coming," and it has people dressed in white playing games like croquet, ring toss, and horseshoes. I've only played games like that once. Back in 3rd grade, this girl, Tori, who Sasha and I were friends with before she moved to Buffalo, invited us to her 8th birthday party, which was at her grandmother's house in Falmouth. We took turns playing lawn games, though none of us wore white. I remember how Tori's dad had coached her from the sidelines, telling her how to hold the horseshoe, how to take aim, how to throw it high enough and far enough that it circled and landed around the stake. I wondered at the time if my dad would have taught me to play horseshoes in our little backyard if he hadn't died in Afghanistan. I cut out the horseshoes for my paper dad. After that, I don't feel like cutting out paper things. Instead, I pick up a catalog page that Omar has discarded. I fold it and cut out a snowflake. It's small but complicated with a little star in the middle. I picture the halls of our school covered in snowflakes, and this gives me an idea. What if my campaign started invisibly? What if Daniel and I secretly hung snowflakes all around the school like some sort of spring blizzard to bring attention to the lost traditions? I think about enlisting Sasha, but I know that at this stage, I could never persuade her. First of all, she thinks Daniel is weird. Second of all, she has a leadership role and wouldn't want to jeopardize it by sneaking around after hours and bending school rules. Third, she still isn't talking to me. Fourth, she thinks Daniel is weird. But what if the spring blizzard isn't enough to get kids and administrators excited about bringing back the traditions? Or worse, what if no one gets it? Maybe we need something else, something to make our mission perfectly clear. The ideas are percolating as I grab another catalog page and start cutting. If the snowflakes got some kids' attention, we could maybe get them to fight for our cause. They could help us stage an impromptu crazy hat day. We'd have to come up with a way of spreading the word and finding kids who'd be willing to risk getting in a bit of trouble by wearing a hat to school. But once everyone saw the great hats like the upside-down ice cream cone that Briggs bought me, surely excitement would spread for all the other great Eastland Elementary traditions. "Ari, what are you doing?" asked Juju, pushing a catalog closer to me. She's clearly disappointed in my choice at the cutting table today. "I'm making a snowflake, see?" I unfold my triangle to show her the lacy shape I've cut. "Snowflakes?" Carol says as she passes by us. "It's April, Ari. We don't want snowflakes now. We want warm spring weather." I smile and tell Carol about my campaign to bring back the Eastland Elementary traditions, starting with a surprise spring blizzard. "What a great idea," Carol says. She brings me white paper. Fran pulls up a chair next to me. "I've never made a paper snowflake," she says. "Have you guys?" She asks the group of starters at the cutting table. They shake their heads. "Would you show us how?" She's surprisingly fast with scissors. In no time at all, she's cutting really complicated snowflakes. The little kids' snowflakes are a lot simpler, random shapes cut out of pieces of paper folded just in half, since it's too hard for them to cut through multiple layers of folded paper. Soon, they're bored by the assignment and start to get restless. "I know," says Fran, and she goes and gets glue bottles and glitter. "Let's make our snowflakes sparkle." This the kids know how to do. They squeeze glue onto the snowflakes, shake glitter on top of the glue, and then slide the excess glitter off into a tub. Later, Fran or Carol will ask me to refill the shaker bottles with the glitter from the tub. They both hate that job. "You have glitter in your hair and underneath your fingernails for a week," says Carol. But I don't mind. I like sparkles. At one point, Fran tears a page from a catalog, but she doesn't fold it into a snowflake. Instead, she sets the page to the side. I look more closely. It's a page of bikes. "I'm hoping to buy a bicycle this spring," she says when she notices me looking, "to ride to work, but they're much more expensive than I imagined." I nod. The past 2 months have shown me just how expensive things are. Once again, I'm so grateful that Gage now has a job. I can still barely believe how lucky. "Hey," I say, "I think I might know a way to help you get a bike." I tell her about Reggie and the wishing plane. Did he know that your brother was applying for a job at Jiffy Lube?" Fran asks. "No. I didn't even know. Reggie just happened to give me a plane that had the ad. I made a wish and flew the plane out a window. Fran is quiet as she cuts a 6-pointed flake. I could take that catalog page to Reggie, I offer. Fran laughs at my persistence. Why not, she says. Wishing never hurt. She slides the picture over to me and I walk into the hall to carefully place it and the snowflakes into my backpack. Wait! Fran joins me in the hall with her purse. She takes $3 bills from her wallet and hands them to me. Would you give this to him from me? For his time, for his talent? I don't think you have to pay him, I said. He makes free airplanes for kids all the time. I know, she says, but it seems like the right thing to do. I wonder what Reggie will think of my request. Will he mind that I'm asking him for another plane, this time for someone else? And what will he think when I tell him that his paper airplane made my wish come true? Chapter 19, Receipts. After the goodbye song, Fran races off to an appointment. Clusters of parents arrive to pick up the starters until only Carol and I are left. This is really unusual. Gage typically picks me up in the middle of dismissal, not at the end. Why don't you call Gage and see how close he is? Carol suggests, handing me her phone. I start to dial Gage's number, but quickly realize that it won't do any good. I can't, I say. Gage doesn't have his phone today. No phone? I can tell that this frustrates Carol. I can also tell that she's eager to leave. She has to pick her baby girl up at daycare. It's okay, I say. Gage will be here soon. I can't leave you. If Gage doesn't come in 15 minutes, I say, I'll go to Lighthouse and I'll tell West. I won't, though. I know that West has looked the other way before, but that's because he really believes Gage is doing what's best for me. If I show up at Lighthouse complaining that Gage never picked me up, I don't know if West would ever be able to keep that one to himself. Instead, I'll go to Chloe's. Surely Gage would think to look for me there. Carol is uncertain. The bus stop is only 2 blocks away, I say, and it will be light for another hour or so. All right, she says. She takes a receipt out of her purse and writes her number on it. Call me when you're with Gage. Carol keeps looking back as she walks down the street to her car. We both want Gage to show up before she's gone. I don't know whether I'm more mad at Gage or afraid for him. What if something happened during his training at Jiffy Lube? I don't know a whole lot about mechanic shops, but they seem like the kind of place where accidents could happen. Maybe Gage was distracted because of what I'd told him this morning about Jana no longer buying my school lunch. Maybe he'd been thinking about that instead of focusing on what he was doing, and I force myself to stop thinking like that. He's probably fine. Maybe he just lost track of time, or maybe his training went on longer than expected. I wait around for what feels like about 15 more minutes, and then I head to the bus stop. I see the bus coming as I approach, and I race the last block and catch it just in time. The bus going into town isn't crowded at this hour, since most people are leaving their jobs in the city and heading for their homes in the suburbs, so I have no trouble finding a seat all to myself. But now that I'm actually on the bus, I'm plagued by a new set of worries. What if Gage arrived at Head Start right after I left? Would he be mad at me for leaving? Would he think to look for me at Chloe's? Should I have left him a note somehow, maybe tucked in the door to the Head Start building, letting him know where to find me? I try to put myself in Gage's shoes. If I were Gage and I showed up at Head Start late and saw that my little sister was missing, who's the first person I would go to help find her? It would definitely be Chloe, I assured myself. She'd keep a level head and know just what to do. The bus pulls up to the stop by Chloe's place. I get off and start trudging up the hill. Maybe I'll even bump into Gage as I'm walking. Rather than keeping my head down and looking for pennies, I scan the faces that I pass, hoping to spot Gage. There's a woman covered in blankets leaning against the wall of a building. A man with dreadlocks who is shouting loudly, though no one appears to be listening. There's a bearded man who walks toward me with his hands out. I offer a smile, friendly but not too friendly, and I walk faster. The door to Chloe's apartment building feels like home. I push it open and climb the stairs, trying not to notice the smell of pee. I knock on the door, ready to reassure Chloe when she sees me standing here without Gage. But after 3 knocks, no one answers. It hadn't occurred to me that Chloe or her roommates might not be home. I turn the doorknob to see if the door is unlocked, but no such luck. Now what? Should I wait here for Chloe or one of her roommates to show up? Or for Gage to show up, knowing that this is where I most likely would be? But if Gage knows that Chloe isn't home right now, would he assume I'd know that too? In that case, where would he think to look for me? Briggs' studio. I dash down the stairs. What if he's already there? Will he leave as soon as he sees that I'm not there? Then where will he look for me? How are we supposed to find each other when neither of us has a phone? Holy moly, Gage must be as worried about me right now as I am about him. I fly back down the hill toward the stop for the bus going to the East End. The bus stop is spilling over with adults waiting to take the bus out of the city, back to their homes with their bright kitchens and their shiny granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. I picture them eating with their families at long tables filled with platters of food. Afterward, they'll help their kids with their homework, and the kids will grumble, but they'll also be glad because they won't be scared or embarrassed when the teacher comes around to collect their homework. Even though lots of people are loaded down with briefcases or shopping bags, no one is sitting down at the bus stop. I peer past the crowd and into the bus shelter. A man is curled up on the bench with his back turned toward the crowd. Every so often someone shoots him a grumpy look, and a woman next to me mutters, "Lousy drunk." I take a closer look at the man. He seems familiar to me. Do I know him from the soup kitchen? Just then the man turns over on his back, and suddenly I know exactly who he is. And I know for sure that he's not drunk, just tired. Bone tired. The kind of tired that comes after a long day of training at Jiffy Lube, and one that pulls you down even though you were supposed to be picking up your little sister from Head Start. The man sleeping on the bench is Gage. The bus pulls up and I wait until all the people have boarded before I shake my brother awake. Gage is even more distressed than I expected him to be, but not for the reason I expected. He looks at his watch. "Shoot, shoot, shoot," he says, only he doesn't say shoot. "We've got to go, hurry up!" He looks frantic. At first I think he's still half asleep, convinced we've overslept for work or school, but when I start to explain that it's late afternoon, he interrupts me. "I know that, Ari, but we have to be across town in 10 minutes. "What for?" I ask, rushing to keep up with his long strides. "I wonder if we'll be crashing with someone new tonight. A friend from Jiffy Lube, maybe? At least it's not Lighthouse. To see the apartment." I stop. "What?" "The 2-bedroom apartment. I called this morning from work," Gage yells over his shoulder. He's still hurrying along and is already crossing Maple Street. "Let's go!" I run to catch up with him. "We're going to see an apartment?" "Not if you don't hurry. The landlord said he'd meet us at 5. I don't know how long he'll wait." I'm practically skipping as we make our way to the bus headed to the East End. I decide not to remind Gage that I was waiting for him in the East End. He still hasn't put 2 and 2 together and realized that he forgot to pick me up from Head Start. And maybe, just maybe, if everything goes right tonight, he'll be too distracted by happiness to remember. Come back next week for more of Paper Things.